My name is Eleanora Briggs. I am 83 years old, and most people think they know me. To the women at church, I'm the quiet widow who bakes pies for the Sunday potluck. To the children in the neighborhood, I'm Grandma Nora, the lady who keeps butterscotch candies in her purse and smiles when they ring her doorbell. To the clerks at the grocery store, I'm the fragile woman with shaky hands who counts her coins too slowly at the counter. That's who they think I am. But there is another me. A me that nobody knows. A me that has lived with a secret for decades. A me that carries the memory of one night, the night I took my husband's life with my own 2 hands. I don't look like a murderer. My hair is thin and white, curled tight against my head. My back bends when I walk. I move slow, with the help of a cane, and my voice shakes when I speak. But beneath the wrinkles, beneath the quiet smiles, there's a truth I've never told anyone. Until now. You see, people always say that time heals everything. They say that the past fades, that old wounds close. But some wounds never close. Some choices echo so loudly that even after 40 years, I can still hear the sound of glass hitting the floor, still see the look in his eyes as the poison worked its way through his body. That night is carved into me like a scar. And it began with something as simple as a glass of sweet tea. The glass trembled in my hand. My fingers, thin with age now but steady back then, wrapped around the handle as I carried it from the kitchen. Inside the amber liquid swirled the powder. The choice, the weapon, the only way out. The living room smelled of whiskey and sweat. Samuel sat in his recliner, slouched low, one leg kicked out, the other tapping against the floor in a slow, impatient rhythm. His eyes darted toward the stairs, and I felt the weight of what was coming if I did nothing. "Where's June?" His voice cracked through the air, sharp and commanding. I swallowed hard. "Upstairs." He grunted, already shifting forward in his chair. He meant to rise, to go to her. My knees wobbled, but I stepped forward, setting the glass down on the table beside him. "Your tea." He didn't thank me. He never did. He grabbed it, lifted it to his mouth, and drank. 1 sip. 2. Then the glass tilted high, the liquid rushing down his throat. I held my breath as he smacked his lips and set it down carelessly on the table. The room went quiet again, except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. My hands twisted together in front of me. My heart thudded against my ribs. And then, the cough. Small at first, barely a sound. He rubbed his chest, cleared his throat. Another cough, louder, deeper. His brows furrowed. His breath caught. He tried to speak but choked instead, the word cutting short. His hand shot to his throat. His face twisted, eyes bulging, confusion melting into rage. The glass tipped from the table and hit the floor, rolling away with a hollow clink. He pushed against the armrest, trying to stand, but his knees buckled, and he dropped to the carpet, his body jerking. His hands clawed at the air, desperate for relief that would never come. I stood frozen. This was it. The moment. The end. His eyes locked onto mine. Even as the life drained from him, fury burned in them. He mouthed something, his lips moving silently. I knew what he was saying. "You'll pay for this, Eleanora." And then I heard the creak. My stomach dropped. The upstairs door opened, and June's voice floated down, soft but worried. "Mama." My body stiffened. My eyes darted to the stairs. Her footsteps were quick, light. She appeared in the doorway, her long hair falling around her shoulders, her face pale in the dim light. She saw him on the floor, gasping, twisting, his face flushed dark red. Her scream split the room. "Daddy!" She rushed forward, dropping to her knees beside him. Her hands pressed against his chest, fumbling, desperate. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Mama! Help him! Call someone!" she cried. Her eyes turned to me, wide, terrified, pleading. My hand twitched toward the phone on the wall. Just inches away. Inches between his life and his death. If I called, he would live. If I called, the nightmare would go on. If I called, June would never be free. But if I didn't... Mama! June's voice cracked, her sobs shaking her whole body. She pounded his chest, crying, "Daddy, breathe! Please breathe!" I couldn't move. My breath caught in my throat. My heart hammered so violently I thought it would burst. Samuel's body shuddered one last time. His chest rose, and then fell. Still. Silent. Empty. The world froze. June looked up at me, her hands trembling on his chest, her lips quivering. "Mama." I opened my mouth, but no words came. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. My heart thundered. And there, in the quiet aftermath, I realized something terrible. I had killed to save her. But as I looked at her broken face, I wondered if I had destroyed her instead. My name is Eleanor, I am 78 years old, and as I sit here tonight, staring at the cup in my trembling hands, I feel the weight of a lifetime pressing down on me. A simple porcelain teacup, decorated with faded blue roses, has become the stage for the most terrible decision of my life. The kitchen feels too quiet. The refrigerator hums in the corner, the clock ticks above the stove, and yet the air is thick with silence. My heart beats so loudly I'm afraid someone outside might hear it. The windows are closed, the curtains drawn, and the world beyond feels distant, like another planet where people laugh, shop for groceries, and plan vacations. But here, in this dimly lit kitchen, I sit with a secret heavy enough to drown me. On the table before me rests a small glass vial. Its liquid glimmers under the weak light, looking harmless, almost beautiful. But I know what it holds. Death. Quick, quiet, absolute. I never imagined I would possess something like this, let alone plan to use it. I never thought I would reach this age and find myself here, trapped between the man I once promised to love until death, and the daughter whose life has been twisted and crushed by his cruelty. Tonight, there is no escape from the truth. My husband, Bernard, has to die. I whisper his name into the room, testing it, as if saying it out loud will make my intentions more real. Bernard. My lips tremble. For 50 years, that name belonged to the man who once brought me flowers, who built this very house with his bare hands, who danced with me in the yard under the stars when we were young. But those days are long gone. That man is a ghost, and in his place is someone darker, colder, more dangerous. And he has destroyed our daughter. I run my finger along the rim of the teacup, the porcelain smooth beneath my skin. Bernard always insists on having chamomile tea before bed. He says it calms his nerves, helps him sleep. I've made it for him 1,000 times before, sometimes grudgingly, sometimes lovingly, but always faithfully, like a dutiful wife. Tonight will be the last time. I set the kettle on the stove and watch the blue flame flicker beneath it. The hiss of water heating is louder than usual, or maybe my senses are sharper, stretched thin by fear. I glance at the vial again, sitting so innocently beside the sugar jar. My hand shakes as I pick it up, the glass cool against my palm. Just a few drops are all it takes. As I unscrew the cap, I feel sweat forming along my forehead, my breath coming in shallow bursts. "Lord, forgive me," I murmur, though my voice breaks. "Forgive me, but I can't let him hurt her anymore." The kettle whistles, sharp and piercing, and I almost jump out of my chair. My nerves are stretched to snapping. I grab it quickly, pouring steaming water into the cup, watching the tea leaves swirl and rise. The room fills with the soft, grassy scent of chamomile. I hold the vial over the cup, tilting it ever so slightly. One drop falls, then another, and another. They vanish into the golden liquid, leaving no trace behind. My heart pounds. I grip the counter to steady myself, whispering, "It's done. It's done." And then I hear his footsteps. Heavy, dragging, each one echoing through the hallway like the toll of a bell. My stomach twists into knots. Bernard's presence fills the house before he even enters the kitchen. He has always had that power, an ability to make the air feel heavier, colder, simply by walking into a room. When he finally appears in the doorway, I force my face into calmness, but inside, my body feels like a trembling leaf. He is taller than me, broad-shouldered, though age has bent him slightly. His hair is gray and thinning, his eyes sharp and calculating. He scans the room the way a predator surveys its surroundings. "Tea ready?" he asks, his voice gravelly. "Yes," I say softly, almost too softly. I pick up the cup and carry it toward him. My hands tremble so much I fear I might spill it, revealing everything. He takes it without a word, his thick fingers brushing mine, sending a shiver through me. He sits heavily at the table, the chair creaking beneath him. He lifts the cup, blows across the surface, and I watch, frozen, as he takes the first sip. Every second feels like an hour. My breath catches in my throat. This is it, the moment where everything changes. The man who has tormented us, who has ruined the spirit of our daughter, is drinking his own death. But then something unexpected happens. He sets the cup down slowly, staring at me with those cold eyes. A smirk spreads across his face. "Eleanor," he says, dragging my name out like a whip. "You think I don't know what you're doing?" The blood drains from my face. My knees go weak. What do you mean?" I stammer. His smirk widens. He leans back in his chair, tapping the cup with his thick finger. "You really thought I wouldn't notice? The smell is different. Fainter. Sweeter. You added something, didn't you?" My throat tightens. My body screams to run, but I am rooted to the floor. He knows. Somehow he knows. It's nothing," I say, my voice cracking. "Just more sugar than usual." Bernard chuckles, low and cruel. "Don't lie to me, Eleanor. You're terrible at it." He takes another sip, his eyes locked on mine the entire time. My heart nearly stops. If he suspects poison, why is he drinking? Then it hits me. He doesn't care. Whether it's pride, arrogance, or sheer madness, he is daring me, testing me. And with every swallow, he's telling me that even death won't scare him. The cup lowers, and he coughs once, just faintly, into his hand. He doesn't look afraid, he looks entertained. "So this is how far you've fallen." The sweet little wife finally grew claws. I feel tears prick my eyes, but I force myself to stand tall. "I had no choice," I whisper. "You've destroyed her, Bernard. You've destroyed us all." His chuckle deepens into a harsh, barking laugh. "Destroyed? No, Eleanor. I shaped her. I shaped you. Weak things need force to survive. And look at you now. You wouldn't even be able to kill me without trembling." But as he speaks, his words begin to slur. His eyelids flutter. The cup shakes in his hand. A harsh wheeze escapes his throat. He grips the table, his knuckles white, his breathing shallow. The poison is working. For the first time in years, I see something in his eyes I never thought possible. Fear. He collapses to his knees, clutching his chest, gasping for air. His face turns red, then pale. His strength drains away as if the years are finally catching up all at once. And I just stand there, watching. My body feels hollow, my heart pounding so violently I think it might burst. "Eleanor," he croaks, reaching a trembling hand toward me. "Help me." The world spins. The man who tormented me, who tormented our daughter, is on the floor before me, begging for life. And suddenly, the truth becomes unbearable. This is not just about killing him. This is about what comes after. If he dies now, the world might never know the truth of what he did. The law may call me a murderer. The church may call me a sinner. My daughter may never forgive me. But if I save him, if I reach down and call for help, he will go on living, breathing, and hurting. The kettle whistles again, shrill and mocking, filling the silence as I stare at Bernard writhing on the floor. My hands clutch the edge of the counter so tightly that the porcelain of the sugar jar cracks beneath my grip. My whole body shakes as I realize I must choose. Do I let him die here at my feet, ending his reign of terror forever? Or do I save him and risk condemning my daughter and myself to more years of suffering? The seconds stretch. His gasps grow weaker. My heart screams. My mind burns. I know whatever choice I make tonight will decide everything. And the weight of it might crush me. If you were Eleanor, what would you do? Would you let Bernard die, or call for help? Tell me in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter of Eleanor's story. It's only getting more intense. Bernard lay sprawled on the kitchen floor, his broad chest heaving, his hand clawing at the tiles as if the ground itself might give him mercy. The once commanding man, the one whose shadow filled every corner of this house, was now reduced to a choking, gasping body at my feet. His lips quivered, his eyes bulged, and yet even through the haze of poison, I could see something in him still trying to control me, still daring me to act. My legs felt like they weren't mine. I stood frozen, staring down at him, the cup still steaming on the table like some cruel witness. My breath came shallow, every inhale sharp and trembling. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out the sound of his choking, yet I could see his chest rising and falling in panicked jerks. He reached out again, his fingers stretching toward my slipper. Eleanor. His voice was gravel torn to pieces. For a moment, my instincts screamed at me to kneel, to put my hands under his and lift, to call 911, to save him because that is what a wife does. 50 years of habit, of duty, of silence pressed down on me, whispering that this was my place, to help, to serve, to endure. But then I saw her face. Not in a memory. Not as a ghost. I saw my daughter Miriam, standing at the top of the stairs. She wasn't really there, I knew, but in my mind she was, her eyes hollow from years of pain, her voice cracking as she whispered to me only days ago, "Mom, I can't take it anymore. I can't live in this house with him. I'll end it all if something doesn't change." That memory shoved me back into the kitchen, into the present moment, into the choice in front of me. If I saved him, Miriam would never be free. If I let him die, she might finally breathe. Bernard's nails scraped against the linoleum as he tried to pull himself closer. The sound was unbearable, like metal on glass. His eyes begged, but there was no love in them. Only desperation. I crouched down slowly, my knees cracking with the weight of age, until my face hovered just above his. His breath stank of chamomile and something sour. His lips trembled, flecks of spit gathering at the corners. "Help me," he gasped again. I wanted to spit back. "Did you help her? Did you ever help us?" But my mouth stayed shut. My jaw trembled too much to form words. I looked at my hands, wrinkled and veined, trembling like dry leaves in the wind. These were hands that had cooked his meals, washed his clothes, held his children. These were hands that had signed their names together on a marriage certificate all those years ago. And now, these same hands had delivered poison. I pressed one against my chest to keep from collapsing, and with the other, I reached toward him. Not to save him, but to lift his chin so he would look at me. "You don't get to beg now, Bernard," I whispered. My voice surprised me. It was steady, low, almost calm. "You never begged when she cried. You never begged when I pleaded. You never begged when you broke us down." His eyes widened, not with fear, but with fury. Even at death's door, he tried to glare, to frighten me, to command me. That glare had ruled me for half a century. But tonight, it was powerless. He coughed violently, his body jerking, and then he slumped harder against the floor. His breath wheezed, faint, shallow. The poison was pulling him away, one ragged gasp at a time. And then came the sirens. Far away at first, faint and hollow through the walls of the house. But growing louder. Closer. My blood turned to ice. Someone had called for help. Not me. God knows I hadn't picked up the phone. But who? My neighbor, Mrs. Kinsey, who was always snooping at the windows. Did she hear the shouting? Or had Miriam called someone earlier, sensing danger? The sirens grew louder until red and blue lights began to flash against the curtains. My heart thundered in panic. I hadn't prepared for this. I thought it would just be me and him and the silence of this house. But now, a pounding on the front door shattered the air. Police. Is anyone inside? My breath caught. Bernard's eyes fluttered open, faintly aware, and for the first time, I saw it, the tiniest smirk twitching at the corner of his lips. Even dying, he was mocking me. He knew this wasn't over. If the police came in now, what would they see? An old woman standing over her poisoned husband? The pounding grew louder. Open up. Emergency services. My hands shook uncontrollably. The vial was still on the counter. The cup sat on the table, half empty. Evidence everywhere. I darted for the counter, snatching the vial and shoving it deep into my apron pocket. The porcelain teacup. I grabbed it, rushed to the sink, and slammed it down, the pieces shattering like gunfire. My heart nearly burst from my chest. The pounding turned into a crash as the door splintered open. Heavy boots stomped down the hallway. Voices shouted, sharp, commanding. And there I stood, beside my husband as he lay wheezing on the floor, pretending to be helpless, pretending to be the victim. 3 officers stormed into the kitchen, their flashlights blinding me, their voices booming. Step away from him. Ma'am, step back. I stumbled, lifting my hands, my breath shaking so hard I could barely stand. I didn't. But Bernard coughed violently, louder now, dramatic, his voice rasping like gravel dragged across stone. Help. She tried to kill me. The words clawed into the air, slicing my chest wide open. And I realized at that moment, he wasn't just fighting for his life. He was dragging me down with him. Even as his lungs failed, Bernard was determined to make sure I went with him into the pit. The officers rushed past me, kneeling by his side, calling for medics. One of them turned sharply toward me. Ma'am, what happened here? My lips moved, but no sound came out. My throat was dry, my mind a whirl of panic. The truth was impossible. The lie was dangerous. Silence was death. And all I could do was stand there, an old woman with trembling hands, as my husband tried to paint me as his murderer. For the first time tonight, I wasn't sure if I had killed Bernard, or if he had finally killed me. The flashing red and blue lights painted my kitchen like a nightmare carnival. The smell of chamomile tea still lingered in the air, mixing with the sharp tang of sweat and panic. Bernard lay on the floor wheezing, surrounded by officers and paramedics who stormed in as if the house was under siege. And in many ways it was. But it wasn't Bernard's life they were saving. It was his story. His chance to drag me down with him. I stood frozen, my back against the counter, my palms pressed flat against the cool surface to keep myself from collapsing. My knees trembled. My breath rattled. One officer with a square jaw and cold eyes turned toward me, shining his flashlight directly into my face. Ma'am, he barked. Step back. Hands where I can see them. I lifted my trembling hands. I didn't. My voice cracked, the words shriveling in my throat. Bernard coughed loudly, his body jerking as the paramedics shoved an oxygen mask over his face. But he pulled it away just long enough to rasp out, "She tried to kill me." His words were broken, faint, but loud enough for every man in that room to hear. It was like a knife straight to my chest. One paramedic, young and wide-eyed, glanced at me as if I was some monster. The officer with the flashlight narrowed his eyes. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us." "No," I stammered, shaking my head. "No, you don't understand. He's been hurting us. My daughter, me. Ma'am." His voice snapped like a whip. "Now." I felt the air closing in, the walls of my kitchen pressing against me. My chest burned. My throat screamed. But what could I do? I was 78 years old. I was frail, trembling, and cornered. And in the eyes of these men with their uniforms, their flashlights, and their radios crackling with codes, I wasn't a victim. I was the suspect. They pulled me out of my kitchen, past the flashing lights, into the cool night air. The neighborhood had gathered, shadows standing in driveways, whispers slicing the dark. Mrs. Kinsey, my nosy neighbor, stood at her fence with a robe pulled tight around her body, her face pale with curiosity and judgment. I wanted to scream at them all. You don't know what he's done." But my voice betrayed me. The officers guided me into the back of a squad car, the door closing with a final metallic slam. Through the glass, I watched as they loaded Bernard onto a stretcher, his body weak but his eyes sharp, cutting straight into me like daggers. Even strapped down, even choking on poison, he looked at me as though he had won. And maybe he had. At the station, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, humming like insects. They sat me down in a small room with gray walls and a metal table. My hands shook as I tried to lace them together on the table, but they wouldn't stop trembling. I felt so small, so fragile under the gaze of the two officers across from me. One introduced himself as Detective Harris, middle-aged, stern, with eyes that had seen too many liars. The other, Detective Monroe, younger but sharper, her gaze like glass, reflecting but never revealing. "Mrs. Whitaker," Harris began, his voice low but commanding. "Do you know why you're here?" My mouth went dry. I swallowed hard. "Because my husband is sick. He's at St. Luke's right now," Monroe cut in. Her voice was cool, precise. "They're working on stabilizing him. He says you tried to poison him." The words landed like stones on my chest. I felt my breath shorten. My eyes darted to the table, to the cold metal surface that seemed to mock me. "He's lying," I whispered. My voice cracked, weak even to my own ears. Harris leaned forward, folding his hands. "Then tell us what happened. Start from the beginning." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. How could I tell them? How could I explain 50 years of control, manipulation, cruelty, all in a way that made sense? All in a way that didn't make me sound like a bitter old woman trying to kill her husband? I closed my eyes and forced myself to speak. "I made him tea. Like I always do. He started choking. He's not well. He hasn't been for a long time. Mrs. Whitaker," Monroe interrupted, her tone cutting through me. "The paramedics smelled something unusual in the cup. They found residue in the sink. Do you want to explain that?" My heart stopped. My lips parted, but no sound came. I had smashed the cup. I had poured it away. But still, they had found something. And suddenly I realized, the house wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to them now. Every corner would be searched, every drawer opened, every secret uncovered, including the vial in my apron pocket. Panic clawed up my throat. Did I still have it? Had it slipped out in the chaos? Had someone already found it? I clenched my fists under the table, praying they didn't notice. Harris studied me carefully. Look, Eleanor. You're an older woman. You've never been in trouble before. We get that. But you have to help yourself here. If this was a mistake, if something slipped into his drink, you need to tell us now. Because if we find out later... He trailed off, letting the silence crush me. The room spun. Their eyes bore into me. The buzzing lights seemed louder, harsher. And I knew then that Bernard had already planted the seed. To them, I was guilty until proven innocent. I leaned forward, tears stinging my eyes. He hurt my daughter, I whispered. My voice broke. He's been hurting her for years. And me. He destroys everything he touches. I didn't. My throat closed. I didn't mean. The two detectives exchanged a glance. Not shock. Not pity. Just calculation. Monroe leaned back, crossing her arms. We'll need to verify that with your daughter. No. I gasped, panic surging through me. She can't, she's fragile, she's... Harris held up his hand. Mrs. Whitaker. If what you're saying is true, then this might work in your favor. But you have to let us talk to her. The weight of the moment crushed me. If Miriam told them everything, they'd know Bernard's darkness, but they'd also know mine. They'd know I had planned to end him, that I had acted, that I had crossed the line from victim to executioner. And in that sterile gray room, under the harsh lights, I realized the truth. It wasn't just Bernard's life on trial. It was mine. Hours passed. They left me alone in that room, no clock, no window, just silence broken by the occasional thump of footsteps in the hall. My mind spiraled. Miriam's face haunted me. Bernard's wheezing laughter haunted me. And every second, I wondered, was he dead yet? Or was he clinging to life just long enough to destroy me? Finally, the door opened. Monroe stepped in, a folder in her hands. She set it on the table and sat across from me. Her expression was unreadable. Your daughter is on her way, she said flatly. My heart collapsed inside my chest. She'll be here soon, Monroe continued, tapping the folder lightly. In the meantime, Mrs. Whitaker, there's something you should know. She slid a photo across the table. My stomach dropped. It was the vial. My vial. The glass shimmered under the camera flash, the liquid still visible inside. They had found it. I couldn't breathe. My chest locked. My vision blurred. Monroe's eyes never left mine. We'll run tests on it, of course. But you and I both know what's inside. So let me ask you before your daughter gets here, do you want her to hear your confession with us, or do you want to tell her yourself? The world tilted sideways. My throat burned. Confession. The word echoed inside me, growing louder, heavier, until it filled every corner of my soul. I wanted to scream. To tear the room apart. To tell them they had no idea what it meant to live under Bernard's shadow, to watch my daughter shrink smaller and smaller every year. But all I could do was sit there, an old woman with shaking hands, staring at the proof of my crime. And in that silence, the truth pressed against me like a blade. No matter what happened next, whether Bernard lived or died, my life was no longer my own. It belonged to the choice I had made. The walls of that interrogation room had already closed in on me, but when Monroe slid the photo of the vial across the table, I felt them crush my lungs. My breath was thin, shallow, a whisper instead of air. That little glass bottle, so small, so delicate, had ripped my life apart. And then Monroe spoke again, her voice steady, calm, and cold. Your daughter is on her way, Mrs. Whitaker. She'll be here any minute. Before she walks through that door, you need to decide, do you want her to hear your confession with us, or do you want to tell her yourself? My insides froze. Miriam. My daughter, my fragile girl, My only child. The one I had sworn to protect, the one I had tried to save. I had done this for her. But now the choice was no longer about Bernard. It was about whether I would destroy Miriam with the truth. I pressed my trembling hands flat against the cold metal table, trying to ground myself. My fingertips felt numb. I don't. My voice broke, collapsing into silence. Monroe leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. She studied me like a puzzle. Harris re-entered then, his bulk filling the doorway, his eyes just as unreadable. He carried 2 styrofoam cups of coffee, setting one down in front of her, one for himself. Neither offered me water. The casualness of it all, their calm, their routine, only made my panic worse. For them, I was just another case. Another file. Another story to dissect and stamp with guilt or innocence. But for me, it was the end. And then, the door opened. My heart stopped. Miriam. She looked smaller than I remembered, though I had seen her just days ago. Her frame was slight, her shoulders curled inward, her long hair tucked behind her ears like a nervous child. Her eyes, those soft hazel eyes, darted around the room before landing on me. Mom. Her voice cracked, soft but heavy. Tears flooded my eyes instantly. I wanted to run to her, to pull her into my arms, to whisper that everything was going to be all right. But the table, the detectives, the walls, they all stood between us. Sit down, Miriam, Harris instructed gently, pulling out the chair beside me. She obeyed, her gaze never leaving mine. Her hand reached across the table, tentative, shaking, and I grabbed it like it was the only thing keeping me alive. Her fingers were cold, fragile, trembling just like mine. Monroe leaned forward, her tone softened but still cutting. Miriam, thank you for coming. We need to ask you some questions about your father. We need to understand what's been happening in your home. Miriam's eyes widened. Dad. She glanced at me, confused, almost fearful. What happened to him? I couldn't answer. My throat sealed shut. Harris cleared his throat. He's in critical condition at St. Luke's. He says your mother poisoned him. We're trying to sort through the facts. Can you help us? The words hit her like a slap. She recoiled slightly, her hand pulling from mine, her lips parting in disbelief. What? Her voice cracked. Higher now. Mom wouldn't. She wouldn't. Her eyes darted back to me, searching, desperate. And in that look I saw everything. The doubt. The fear. The hope that I would deny it all. That I would tell her it was a mistake, a misunderstanding, a lie. But my silence said it all. Tears welled in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks. Mom, she whispered. What did you do? The detective stayed quiet, watching, waiting, letting the silence strangle us. I opened my mouth, but no words came. My tongue was heavy, my lips trembled. I wanted to scream the truth. I did it for you, Miriam. I did it to free you. But the sound stuck in my chest. She pulled her hand back, folding her arms, rocking slightly in her chair. The tears wouldn't stop. Monroe broke the silence. Miriam, has your father ever hurt you? The question cracked the air. Miriam's eyes shot up, wide and terrified. She shook her head instantly. No. No, he's strict, but... She stopped, her voice breaking. Her eyes filled again. Harris leaned in. You don't have to protect him anymore. Not here. Not now. Whatever he's done, we can help you. But you have to tell us the truth. The room was silent but for Miriam's trembling breath. She hugged herself tighter, her lips pressed together, her eyes darting between the detectives and me. And then she whispered, barely audible. He wasn't kind. It was enough. It cracked open a door. Monroe pressed gently. Miriam, did he ever hurt you physically? Emotionally? Did he ever touch you in ways he shouldn't have? Miriam's face crumpled, but she said nothing. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing softly. My heart shattered. I wanted to scream at the detectives to stop, to leave her alone, to not make her relive what had broken her. But I stayed frozen, my own tears streaming silently down my face. Monroe's voice softened further. Miriam, if your mother did something tonight, maybe it wasn't out of malice. Maybe it was to protect you. But we need to hear it from you. We need to know what happened in your home. The silence was unbearable. Every tick of the clock was a hammer against my skull. And then Miriam lifted her face, her tears streaking her cheeks, her voice shaking so violently it was almost unrecognizable. He hurt me. 4 years. He hurt me. The words ripped through the room like lightning. My chest broke open. She sobbed harder, collapsing against the table, her whole body trembling. Harris scribbled something down. Monroe gave the faintest nod. I sat there, choking on air, staring at my daughter as the truth finally left her lips. The truth I had carried, the truth I had acted on, the truth that had destroyed everything. And yet, despite her words, despite her bravery, I felt no relief. Because the detectives turned back to me, their eyes colder now, harder, sharper. Monroe slid the photo of the vial closer, tapping it with her nail. So, Mrs. Whitaker, given what your daughter just told us, do you want to explain exactly what was in this bottle? The weight of their eyes, Miriam's tears, Bernard's shadow, it all crushed me until I could hardly breathe. My lips parted, my chest heaved, my body trembled. And for the first time, I realized the true horror of it all. Saving Miriam might cost me my freedom. And maybe even my soul. Eleanor's daughter has spoken, but the police now have her cornered. Should Eleanor confess everything to save Miriam, or fight to keep her silence? What would you do? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. It's going to rip your heart apart. The air in the room turns toxic. I can taste the bitterness of coffee, the metal of the table, the salt of tears. Miriam is shaking beside me, her small frame folding in on itself, but her confession still hangs heavy in the air like smoke that won't clear. He hurt me. Her words repeat in my head like a chant. The walls seem to pulse with them. Detective Monroe slides the photograph of the vial even closer, her perfectly manicured nail tapping against it. Tap, tap, tap. Each sound drills into my skull. Mrs. Whitaker, she says, her voice calm, steady, but laced with steel. This is your moment. We know what Bernard did. We believe Miriam. But now we need to know about you. What exactly did you give him tonight? My lips move, but my voice doesn't come out. My tongue feels like it's made of lead. Harris leans forward, his deep voice slicing the silence. Your daughter just told us the truth. She's brave. Now you need to be, too. If you poison Bernard, you need to say it. Right now. In front of her. No more hiding. Miriam turns to me, her hazel eyes red and swollen. She looks at me with a desperate mixture of fear and hope. She wants me to deny it. She wants me to say no, to explain this away, to make it all disappear. But I can't. My chest heaves, my throat burns, and then, I break. Yes. The word escapes like a blade cutting free. Yes, I gave it to him. The room goes silent. Miriam gasps, pulling her hands to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Tears spill down her cheeks again, but this time they come with a strangled sound, half sob, half scream. Mom. Her voice cracks into pieces. No, 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 why? I can't look at her. My head drops, my hair falling across my face like a curtain. My hands clutch the edge of the table, white-knuckled, shaking. I did it to protect you, I whisper. My voice is hoarse, raw. I couldn't let him touch you again. I couldn't let him destroy you. Miriam shakes her head violently, tears streaming. You don't understand. You don't fix this by killing him. You don't. Her voice breaks, dissolving into sobs. Monroe doesn't move. Her expression is unreadable, but her pen scribbles quickly against her notepad. Harris leans back slightly, his eyes narrowing. So you admit it, he says. You poisoned your husband. I lift my head slowly, my tears blurring the world. Yes. The word comes out like a death sentence. Miriam's sobs echo through the small room, her body collapsing against the table. My hand reaches out for hers, desperate, but she flinches away, pulling her arms tight to her chest. The rejection slices me open. Monroe finally speaks again, her tone even colder now. What was in the vial, Mrs. Whitaker? Was it lethal? I swallow hard. My mouth is dry as bone. My answer trembles in the air. It was. It was enough to stop him. Miriam lets out another strangled sob, her whole body trembling. Harris presses, his eyes sharp. Where did you get it? Did you plan this? How long have you been preparing? The questions hammer me, one after the other. My breath quickens, panic rising. My hands twist in my lap. I didn't plan it, I stammer. Not like this. But I knew. I knew one day I'd have to choose. Him or her. And I chose her. The words hang in the air like a confession carved into stone. Monroe leans forward, her eyes locking onto mine. So you're saying this was deliberate? Not an accident. Not a mistake. A choice. I nod slowly, tears dripping down my chin. A choice. Miriam cries harder, her sobs shaking her fragile frame. Mom, no. The sound of her grief rips through me, deeper than any punishment the law could bring. Monroe closes her notebook with a sharp snap, her expression grim. We'll need the vial itself. And you'll need to give us a full written statement. For now, you'll be taken into custody. The words pierce me, but I barely hear them over the sound of Miriam's sobs. No, she cries, her voice breaking. You can't take her. She was protecting me. She did it for me. Harris shifts uncomfortably, his jaw tightening. Monroe doesn't waver. The law doesn't see it that way, Miriam. Poisoning is a crime. No matter the reason. Miriam throws her arms onto the table, sobbing uncontrollably. Then take me too. If you're taking her, take me too. My heart splinters. I want to hold her, to pull her against me, to tell her she'll be okay. But I can't move. My body feels like it's made of stone. Monroe stands, signaling to someone outside the room. The door opens, and two uniformed officers step in. The sound of their heavy boots against the tile floor echoes like a drumbeat of doom. Miriam grabs my arm, clinging desperately. No. Don't take her. Please don't take her. The officers move closer. Harris rises, towering over us. Monroe stays where she is, her gaze fixed on me like ice. Miriam, I whisper, turning to her, forcing my trembling hands to hold her face. Listen to me. This isn't the end. Do you hear me? This isn't the end. Her tears soak my palms as she shakes her head violently. Don't leave me, Mom. Don't leave me. I choke on my sob, my body convulsing with it. I love you. I did this for you. Never forget that. And then, the officers pull me back. Miriam screams, her voice raw, feral, breaking through every wall. No. The sound follows me as they drag me toward the door, my wrists snapping into cold metal cuffs. The steel bites into my skin, but the real pain is behind me. My daughter's cries echoing down the hall, her world collapsing. As the door slams shut behind me, I realize the truth. I saved Miriam from Bernard. But I may have destroyed her with myself. The cuffs bite into my wrists with every step. The corridor smells of bleach and old sweat, its white walls lined with buzzing fluorescent lights that hum like angry bees. My feet shuffle across the slick tile, each sound echoing louder than the last. Behind me, Miriam's cries still ring out, faint now, swallowed by walls and distance. They tear through my chest like claws. "Keep moving," one officer mutters, his hand firm on my arm. I stumble, nearly falling, but he steadies me. Not out of kindness, just efficiency. To him, I'm not a mother. Not a grandmother. Not a woman who has lived 83 years of hardship and sacrifice. To him, I'm only a suspect. A criminal. We reach a steel door. It buzzes, clicks, and opens. The officers guide me inside, down another corridor that smells even sharper, like fear mixed with metal. We stop at a desk where another officer waits with a clipboard. He doesn't even look at me as he flips papers. Name. The officer holding me answers for me. Eleanora Briggs Whitaker. 83. His eyebrows twitch, but he doesn't look up. Charges. Suspicion of homicide. Poisoning. The words slam into me like stones. My chest constricts. My knees weaken. The desk officer finally looks up. His eyes sweep over me. My white hair, my bent shoulders, my trembling frame. Something flickers in his gaze, maybe pity, maybe disgust, but it vanishes in an instant. Take her through booking. I'm led again, my legs trembling, until we reach a room with a camera. They force me to stand against the wall. The officer adjusts the lens, sighs, and then the flash burns my eyes. Click. My mugshot. The weight of it crushes me. A life reduced to a picture on file. A grandmother turned into a criminal record. Turn to the side, the officer instructs. Click. Another flash. Another image. I want to scream. I want to rip the cuffs off and run back to Miriam, hold her, beg her forgiveness. But instead, I stand still, trembling, silent. They take me to another room. Cold. Sterile. A woman in uniform orders me to remove my jewelry, my scarf, my shoes. My fingers fumble with my wedding band, the gold worn thin from decades on my hand. For a moment, I can't pull it off. It sticks against my swollen knuckle. The woman sighs impatiently. Do you need help? I shake my head violently. My hand trembles, but finally, the band slips free. I stare at it in my palm, the last piece of Samuel still clinging to me. The symbol of the man I killed. Put it in the tray, she orders. My chest aches as I drop it into the cold metal box. They take my fingerprints next. My frail fingers pressed against black ink, rolled across paper, one by one. Each print feels like a signature in blood. Finally, they lead me into a holding cell. The heavy door slams shut behind me, and the sound reverberates through my bones. The room is small, with a steel bench attached to the wall and a toilet in the corner. The air smells of disinfectant and despair. I lower myself onto the bench, my body aching, my soul collapsing. For the first time, silence surrounds me. No officers. No detectives. No Miriam. Just me. And him. Even here, in this cold, empty room, I can feel Samuel's presence. His laugh, his anger, his hand gripping the banister as he marched upstairs. The ghost of him sits in the corner, smirking, whispering, "You'll never escape me, Eleanora. Even in death, I own you." I clutch my hands together, shaking. My tears fall silently onto the floor. I don't know how long I sit like that before the door opens again. "Mrs. Whitaker," a voice says. I look up. It's a man in a dark suit, holding a briefcase. His hair is gray at the temples, his face stern but not unkind. I'm Daniel Price, court-appointed attorney. He steps inside, setting the briefcase on the bench beside me. You've been charged with suspected homicide. You'll need representation. That's me. I nod weakly, my voice too thin to speak. He studies me for a moment, then sighs. You don't look like most of my clients. But the law doesn't care how old you are. They'll push for the harshest sentence they can get. A shiver runs through me. But, he continues, lowering his voice, if we play this right, there's a chance. A slim one. But a chance. I swallow hard. What chance? He leans closer. If we can prove abuse, if we can show that you acted to protect your daughter, we might argue self-defense. Or diminished capacity, given your age. But it won't be easy. They'll want blood. The words send ice through my veins. Will I go to prison? I whisper. His eyes soften, but he doesn't lie. It's possible. Yes. I close my eyes, my chest heaving. The thought of cold bars of years behind them, even if I don't have many left, terrifies me. But worse than that is the thought of Miriam alone, broken, carrying my burden. I can't let her suffer, I whisper. Not anymore. Not because of me. He studies me, his gaze heavy. Then you'll need to fight. For her. For yourself. Do you have the strength for that? I open my eyes slowly. My tears blur him, but I see the question burning there. And for the first time tonight, I feel a spark inside me. Small. Fragile. But real. Yes, I whisper. For her I do. The courtroom is colder than the cell. The walls are paneled in wood, but the air bites like winter. The hum of whispered voices fills the room, broken by the shuffle of papers, the creak of chairs, the occasional cough. I sit at the defense table in a chair that feels too big, my frail frame swallowed by it. My wrists itch where the cuffs have rubbed raw, but they're gone now, replaced by the invisible chains of every eye in the room staring at me. Daniel Price, my court-appointed attorney, adjusts his tie beside me. His jaw is set, his briefcase open, papers spread across the table. He looks like a man ready for war. I feel like a woman already defeated. Across from us, the prosecution team sits stiff and confident. A younger man with slicked hair flips through notes, his every movement sharp, rehearsed. He looks up at me now and then, his gaze piercing, cold. To him, I'm not a mother. Not a grandmother. Not a woman who survived decades of pain. To him, I'm just a criminal to be convicted. The judge enters. Everyone rises. My legs tremble as I push myself to standing, the weight of the room pressing down on me. Be seated, the judge says, his voice deep, steady. We sit. The trial begins. The prosecutor rises first, buttoning his jacket. He steps into the center of the courtroom, his voice smooth and sharp all at once. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a simple case. An old woman, yes, but not a harmless one. Mrs. Eleanora Whitaker poisoned her husband deliberately. She planned it. She executed it. And now she wants you to believe she did it to protect her daughter. He pauses, letting the silence stretch, his gaze sweeping over the jurors. But what she really did was take the law into her own hands. That is murder. Plain and simple. His words sting like acid. I shrink lower in my chair, my fingers twisting together. Daniel leans close to me, whispering, "Don't react. Let him talk. Our turn will come." I nod weakly, swallowing down the lump in my throat. The prosecutor continues, painting me as calculating, cold, a woman who chose poison instead of calling for help. He lifts the vial in a plastic bag, holding it up for all to see. "This," he says, is not the tool of a desperate woman. This is the weapon of a killer. Murmurs ripple through the room. My heart pounds so hard I feel dizzy. Finally, he sits. Daniel rises slowly, his gray eyes calm, his voice steady but firm. He buttons his jacket and steps forward, his hands folded in front of him. Ladies and gentlemen, he begins, his tone almost gentle. You just heard a story about a killer. But that's not who my client is. This is Eleanora Whitaker, 83 years old. A mother. A grandmother. A woman who has lived her whole life quietly, modestly, in the same small town. A woman who suffered decades of abuse at the hands of her husband. Abuse her daughter also endured. And when she finally made a choice, it wasn't for herself. It was for Miriam. He turns, pointing toward the gallery. I follow his gaze. There she is. Miriam. She sits in the front row, her hands clutching the edge of the bench, her face pale, her eyes red but burning with fire. She looks at me, her lips trembling, and for the first time in days, I see something in her expression that isn't brokenness. It's resolve. Daniel continues. This case isn't about whether Eleanora poisoned Bernard. She admitted that. This case is about why. About what drove a woman, an elderly woman, frail in body but fierce in love, to take that step. Was it malice? Or was it the last desperate act of a mother protecting her child? The room is silent. Daniel returns to his seat, his jaw tight. He leans close, whispering, "Hold steady. This is where it gets hard." The first witness is called. Detective Monroe. She strides to the stand, her presence commanding. She swears in, sits straight-backed, and answers the prosecutor's questions with precision. She recounts the scene, the vial, my confession. Her words slice through me. Then it's Daniel's turn. He rises slowly, pacing as he speaks. Detective Monroe, you interviewed Miriam Whitaker, didn't you? Yes, she replies firmly. And Miriam disclosed that her father had harmed her? Monroe hesitates, then nods. Yes, she did. A murmur runs through the courtroom. Daniel presses. So when Eleanora acted that night, she wasn't acting in a vacuum. She knew her husband was dangerous. She knew her daughter was at risk. Isn't that correct? Monroe shifts slightly in her seat. That is what Miriam told us, yes. Daniel nods. No further questions. He returns to the table, his face unreadable. The second witness is called. Miriam. My heart stops. She rises slowly, her hands trembling as she swears in. She sits, her eyes flicking to me, then back down to her lap. The prosecutor approaches first. His tone is sharp, almost cruel. Miriam, you've testified that your father harmed you. That's a serious accusation. But I have to ask, why didn't you report it sooner? Why wait until after he was poisoned? Miriam's voice quivers. I was scared. He said no one would believe me. And I believed him. The prosecutor narrows his eyes. Or did you only say it now to protect your mother? No, she bursts out, tears streaming down her cheeks. He hurt me. He did things. Her voice cracks, her sob cutting off the words. Daniel rises quickly. Objection, Your Honor. Badgering the witness. Sustained, the judge says firmly. Counsel, move on. The prosecutor presses his lips into a thin line, clearly dissatisfied, but he steps back. Daniel stands, his approach slow, steady. His voice softens when he speaks. Miriam, look at me. She lifts her eyes, trembling. Did your mother ever hurt you? No, her voice is firm this time, clear despite the tears. Did your mother ever put herself in danger to protect you? Yes. And on that night, When she gave your father that drink, do you believe she did it for herself? No, Miriam shakes her head violently, her tears falling fast. She did it for me. Always for me. The courtroom murmurs again. Daniel steps back, his voice quiet but heavy. No further questions. Miriam looks at me, her eyes locking onto mine. And for the first time since that night, I see no anger, no betrayal. Only love. Fierce. Unwavering. The day drags on, witness after witness, word after word. But all I hear is Miriam's voice, echoing in my chest. She did it for me. Always for me. By the time the judge calls for recess, my body aches, my mind spins, but something has shifted. For the first time since the cuffs snapped around my wrists, I feel like maybe, just maybe, there's hope. The world slowed around me as I stood in the kitchen, staring down at the man who had stolen my daughter's innocence and twisted our home into a prison. Richard lay on the cold tile floor, his breath shallow, his eyes flickering with the last sparks of life. Sweat beaded across his wrinkled forehead. His lips trembled as he whispered one final plea. Evelyn, save me. Those 3 words rang louder than the clock ticking above my head. They echoed through the walls, into my bones, into the marrow of my guilt. My body trembled, but I didn't move. Because saving him meant betraying everything I had done. Everything I had endured. Every ounce of courage it had taken me to pour the poison into his drink. But letting him die meant I was no longer just a survivor. I would become a killer. Behind me, the creak of Margaret's door split the silence. I froze. My daughter's voice drifted through the hall, small and fragile. Mom, is everything okay? My chest squeezed. My lips trembled. My mind screamed. I wanted to yell at her to stay in her room. To hide. To never come near this darkness. But she was my daughter, the very reason I had done this. And now she was only steps away from seeing the truth. I dropped to my knees beside Richard, not out of mercy but out of panic. My hands pressed against his chest. His heart thumped faintly beneath my palm. The poison was working faster now. Evelyn. His eyes searched mine desperately. Don't let me. His voice cracked into silence. I squeezed my eyes shut. My whole body burned with the weight of the choice. If I picked up the phone, dialed 911, and begged for help, the doctors might save him. But that meant Margaret would never be free. She'd spend the rest of her life under his shadow, fearing every word, every touch. If I stayed still, if I let time keep ticking, then the monster would be gone forever. But so would my soul. The sound of footsteps came closer. Margaret. I whipped my head toward the hallway. Stay back. I shouted, louder than I intended. My voice cracked like a whip, raw and jagged. Silence. Then a soft sniffle. Mom. What's happening? My heart splintered. My hands shook as I looked down at Richard again. His lips had turned a shade of blue. His chest barely rose. I felt the universe itself hold its breath. Then I moved. Not to the phone. Not to his side. But to the space between Margaret and the kitchen. I planted myself in the doorway, shielding her from the sight. My voice broke as I whispered through clenched teeth. You will never hurt her again. Behind me, Richard's last breath rattled out of his chest. And then, silence. The world seemed to stop. I stood frozen, my back to Margaret, my eyes fixed on the body sprawled on the floor. For the first time in decades, the house was quiet. Too quiet. The monster was gone. But in his place, stood me. A trembling old woman who had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. My knees quivered. My throat burned. My soul screamed. But I stayed upright. I had to. For her. Margaret's hand brushed my arm. Mom, are you okay? I turned to her slowly, tears streaking my cheeks. I saw her innocent eyes searching mine, desperate for truth. And in that moment, I made my final choice. I knelt before her, cupping her face in my shaking palms. Listen to me, sweetheart, I whispered. No matter what happens, you are safe now. Do you hear me? You are safe. Her lips trembled. She nodded. But, Dad. He's gone, I cut in, my voice cracking. And he will never hurt you again. Her eyes widened. She stepped back, confusion and fear swirling in her gaze. But she didn't argue. She didn't scream. She just stood there, breathing, alive, untouched. And for me, that was enough. I collapsed into her arms, sobbing. My body shook violently, the weight of what I had done crashing down like a tidal wave. Margaret held me, confused, trembling herself, but she didn't let go. In the distance, I could hear the night settling outside, the hum of crickets, the rustle of wind through the trees. For the first time in years, the house wasn't filled with his shadow. It was ours again. But I knew the truth. The silence would not last. Sooner or later, there would be questions, authorities, consequences. But tonight at least, my daughter slept free. And I, Evelyn Whitmore, 75 years old, had finally kept my promise to protect her. Even if it cost me everything. If you were Evelyn, standing over the man who destroyed your family, what choice would you have made? Would you have picked up the phone and saved him? Or stood firm and let him go? Tell me in the comments, because your voice matters in stories like these. And if Evelyn's journey moved you tonight, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more powerful stories that shake the heart and soul. Until next time, stay strong, stay brave, and never stop fighting for what's right.